Today I'm going to be going over three basic things that we can do to go ahead and start enjoy eating healthy, because I found that one of the biggest roadblocks to actually eating healthy is enjoying it, because if you enjoy it, it's much easier. So we're going to be breaking it into three main sections. First of all, we're going to be talking about physical comfort, so things we can do to make eating healthy physically comfortable for us. Then we're going to be talking more about the psychological comfort, which is of course flavor and things like that. And then finally, we're just going to be talking about general life comfort. So this is more the benefits and things that eating healthy will bring you. So yeah, we'll go ahead and jump into the first one here, which is physical comfort. Now, what I mean by this is if any of you have tried eating healthy before, you might go ahead and switch up your diet and start having loads of vegetables, and then you notice you're just getting loads of bloating or you're getting loads of digestive discomfort, potentially even symptoms getting worse, or maybe symptoms staying the same or different symptoms if you're someone who's currently struggling with some kind of digestive issue like I was. So we're going to be talking about how we can actually enjoy eating healthy in a physical sense, right? Because one of the best benefits, which we'll be touching on later for eating healthy, is it means that during the day your general level of comfort and ease improves because of the amount of nutrients you're getting, and eventually, your digestion gets a lot better as well, which gives you a lot of comfort too. So for improving this physical comfort, I'd say the first principle here is making sure you're chewing enough. So this applies to all food, unhealthy or healthy. Just making sure that we're chewing, I'd recommend at least 24 times. I'll be honest, sometimes I'm not always super disciplined with it and I eat a little bit too fast, especially if I'm kind of maybe multitasking, or I really shouldn't be, but multitasking and working and eating at the same time. Then sometimes I do rush, but you do want to try have the general principle of trying to chew more. So just try and chew more than you're chewing just now if you're not really chewing that much, and that should really help. Now, the reason why we do this is because in our mouth, the saliva actually has enzymes that break down the food. So most of the digestion is actually supposed to happen in the mouth. So you just want to be making sure you're chewing the food enough that it goes into a nice paste. That way when it enters your stomach, it's much more easy for your stomach and your intestines to actually digest the food. So that way you're not having to waste unnecessary energy and make the food harder to digest, which is of course going to cause digestive symptoms which you might not want. So that's the first principle, and that applies to eating in general, I would say. That's a massive benefit you can do. It's probably the first thing I changed before I really knew kind of what foods to go for and things like that, which we'll be talking about in a little bit. I just kind of ended up eating the same. So I was eating, a lot of kind of honestly junk food, really, or just like highly processed foods. And I just started chewing it really slow. Now, because these foods were so processed, I ended up going as much as like, I think it was like 35 chews or something per bite, and it was like really small bites. And I noticed that my digestive function improved a lot. Now, this is still not ideal because, if you're not eating healthy, then you're not really going to get all the benefits we're talking about in today's video. But that was definitely a fantastic start. So I highly recommend getting started with that. And that's a really easy thing to start with because technically you don't have to change anything yet to get the benefits of that one. All right, so now we're going to be talking about the choice of foods. Now, one thing you'll notice when eating healthy is that most healthy foods have a lot of fiber in them. So fiber is fantastic because fiber essentially feeds the gut microbiome in your body. So our bodies don't actually break down fiber. It's actually the gut microbiome that does it. But the biggest issue is because of a lot of harmful ingredients in modern day foods, such as emulsifiers and just avoiding healthy foods in general, we don't really have as strong of a gut microbiome as we would usually. So for that reason, we need to kind of build it up, So I almost like to think of it similar to exercise in the case of like just progressively increasing the amount of fiber you can tolerate. So how I went about this is I started off on something you might have heard of called the low FODMAP diet. And one thing you will notice about the low FODMAP diet is it tends to have a lot of low fiber healthy foods. So that's one kind of thing that you'll notice is there is some healthy foods which are low fiber. So when we say healthy foods, for me personally, I just follow a very simple principle of if it has one ingredient, it's usually fairly healthy. So I like to just recommend that of like just having whole foods, and well, of course, if you want to take my recommendation, but that's definitely what's helped me a lot is just sticking to more kind of a whole food diet. And for example, if you go to the shop and you go to the veg section, none of those things have ingredients on it. It's just the vegetable itself. So to get started, I recommend sticking with lower fiber options if you've not really had much fiber before. So some examples here would be like foods like rice. So maybe having like rice and salmon, I remember is what I started with, and then I just started adding small amounts of veg, and then over time I increased it, and eventually like I started like phasing out less of these kind of lower fiber foods and replacing it with the more higher fiber ones. So you can just take a simple Google search online to try and find some of the more lower fiber healthy options like oats or usually like grains like white rice and things like that are usually a lot lower fiber than some other foods like for example cauliflower or like sweet potato or lentils. All these are quite high fiber foods and I have them a lot, but it's taken me a lot of time to build up the tolerance to actually handle them. So I recommend just progressing through it and just gradually trying to bring in more of those healthy foods over time. And you can do this for individual vegetables as well. For example, at the moment with cauliflower, I've been like progressively building up my tolerance to be able to handle it because I threw it in straight away and I just don't think I had the gut microbiome to handle it. So I was getting some digestive symptoms again when bringing it back in. So what I've been doing is just having a small bit of cauliflower every day or every second day. And now I'm pretty much able to have it every day, which is pretty cool. And soon enough, I'll be able to handle large quantities of it and I'll get the health benefits of having loads of cauliflower. But anyway, that's essentially the physical comfort section. Is just starting off with low fiber healthy foods and then working up to the higher fiber healthy foods, which will give you a bit more of a return on your investment because long-term fiber is very good for you, but you need to build up the kind of ability to process fiber. So if you don't have much of a ability to eat a lot of fiber, then that's definitely a good way to do it. So just trying to bring more fiber into your life, but you don't have to do it straight away is the general principle here. So don't feel like, I'm not saying run away from fiber and don't have it. I'm just saying progress it in slowly. So maybe just start off with like having one piece of fruit a day, then maybe you can move up to 2 pieces of fruit a day, or you could apply the same concept with vegetables as well. And just recording how your stomach responds. Some of you will have stronger stomachs than others and might be able to handle quite a lot of new healthy foods straight away, which is pretty cool. And also if you've been having some healthy foods, like if you're not like how I was and just having pretty much purely processed food, then you'll notice that you'll be able to progress with this much quicker because you already have a lot of the gut microbiome already. You just need to make it stronger and bigger. So now we'll talk about the psychological comfort here, which is flavor. So how can we make eating these foods enjoyable? Now, probably the most fascinating thing I've experienced, and this is a little bit more of a long-term thing, and don't worry, we'll be covering the more kind of short-term solutions as well. But that's that over time, when you start eating whole foods again, and you start eating more of these healthy vegetables and fruit, you start to, like, it's almost like your taste buds adapt and you start actually enjoying the foods themselves. And one thing that you really enjoy as well is like the how you feel when you eat the foods as well, because it gives you a massive general boost to how you feel in general. And I'm trying to think how to describe it, but it's almost like how you feel during the day. So going about your day, you just feel like you have a lot more energy and you just feel at ease. Like you don't feel like you've got any of this subtle background heartburn or this subtle indigestion here. You also feel good psychologically because you feel like you're making good choices, which creates a good positive feedback loop in your life, which I think is really positive, especially if you want to be enjoying life to the fullest. It's good to be sitting in a state which is very positive by default, right? So that's one benefit there. And for flavor, it will improve over time. And what I found as well is that once I was kind of progressing away from those kind of lower fiber healthy foods onto the healthier ones, I started craving more different types of fruits and vegetables. Like I remember avocado was one food which I absolutely hated, and it's now one of my favorite foods. And that was just something that kind of just spawned up out of nowhere. It's just like one day I went into the shop and was like, you know what? I want to have avocado. And I had it and then I really enjoyed it. And that's been the same for loads of ones. Sweet potato, I absolutely hated sweet potato. But then I ended up eating it pretty much every day for like a year and a half, absolutely loving it. So it's really interesting how your taste buds almost kind of adapt. And I think, again, it probably comes down to how your body is seeing how amazing you're feeling physically, and so it starts almost craving these foods more. So that's my personal theory there, but I'm not actually sure what the exact process is. But you definitely will find that you start enjoying more of these healthy foods more when you give it enough time. And don't feel like this is going to be like an extensive amount of time. It was not a lot of time for me. I'm talking within like a month or two, I was starting to crave more of these healthy foods, which is really cool. But to start with, you want to obviously choose maybe the healthy foods that you feel more drawn to. So for me, I really liked salmon. So I got started with salmon, and I would have that with rice. And if you maybe don't really like salmon, then you could pick some other kind of food of your choice which you particularly enjoy. That is a kind of whole food. And you just want to get started with having that on a regular basis. And you just want to make sure that every meal you're having, it does have something in it which you do enjoy, because if you're not enjoying the flavor of the food you're eating, it's going to be really hard to stick to this healthier diet. And another thing as well that's really going to help here is that if you're enjoying the food, you can actually have more of it in this case, because unlike a lot of these highly processed foods, there's a lot less calories in these healthier foods. So you can enjoy much bigger meals. So that is another positive benefit here. Some other things you can do to improve the flavor is looking into recipes and things like that. I understand a lot of us don't really have too much time to go ahead and do loads of research into recipes, so even just learning a couple and then just having those regularly can be really beneficial. And fruit as well is also another fantastic thing that you can utilize here for flavor, as fruit tastes amazing. One general recommendation that I would make for fruit is always having it before your meal. Now, this is not necessarily the most science-backed thing, but there's a lot of traditions which suggest about having food around an hour before your main meal. This is talking more about food combining science and Ayurvedic food combining, which is a topic I've been quite interested in and found a lot of benefit in pursuing. And I just want you to consider experimenting with that, maybe having like a regular ritual of just having a little bit of fruit before your meal, roughly an hour or so, 45 minutes before your main meal. And that can be a nice, sweet way to start the meal. And I'd recommend that against having fruit after your meal, because I always found that having fruit after your meal can sometimes feel a little bit uncomfortable and cause a little bit of digestive discomfort. So that's something you can just observe there if you want to try that yourself. But I highly recommend eating fruit before your main meal if you can. And the reason why I'm mentioning fruit, I got a bit of a side tangent there, but fruit is very tasty. So that's a great food group that you can access to start getting some more flavor into this new whole food diet that you'll be trying. And another thing as well is we're going to move on to point number 3 now, which is talking more about the benefits. And of course, you're going to get a large amount of general life comfort, as I was talking about, especially as your body adapts to the higher load of fiber, because these higher fiber foods will have more nutrients and things like that in general. Like most of these kind of high nutrient foods are in these kind of vegetables, like your carrots, your cauliflower, your courgette. I'm just kind of listing off veg, which I have on a regular basis. These are all packed with loads of nutrients, and you're going to notice a massive quality of life improvement by having these foods on a regular basis. And if you can enjoy them by making sure you're using tasty recipes and combining it with foods that you enjoy, then you're going to have a really easy time enjoying these foods and getting the benefits. You will also notice a massive improvement in your productivity as well. So any kind of mental or physical work that you're doing, you can expect to see massive benefits there too, because when you have more nutrients, your body just performs a lot better. If you guys are interested, we'll talk more about food recommendations in the future, but one thing I do want to mention to get the most out of these general life comfort benefits is to make sure you're covering all of your nutrient pillars. So this is a little bit more of an advanced step, but once we get into this more kind of healthier diet, I want to make sure we're covering as many of these nutrients and minerals as possible. So of course you've got your main vitamins, like your vitamin A and vitamin C and vitamin D, which we usually get from the sun and things like that. But we also have some minerals as well, such as calcium, for example, was one which I was doing a lot of work to bring into, because as some of you may know, I do judo, and it's quite an explosive sport, and it can kind of deplete a lot of your energy. Well, just being training athletically in general can be something that can drain a lot of your nutrients, because of course you're working out a lot and exercising a lot. So knuckling in on your diet becomes even more important for people like that. And if you're looking for a good plant-based source of calcium, because I don't actually have dairy products personally, I highly recommend having a look into cauliflower leaves, because cauliflower leaves are a very fantastic source of calcium. I think they're probably one of the easiest forms of calcium to absorb by the body, and I think it's also one of the highest source of calcium as well. So definitely look into cauliflower leaves if you're interested, but it's definitely one of the best sources you can get for calcium. And I'd argue it's probably even better than most dairy products, but that's just my personal experience there. And yeah, I'd highly recommend giving that one a try. Another one as well is making sure you're getting your vitamin C, which is really good for tissue repair and things like that. So I usually just have a lot of oranges or tangerines or just anything in that kind of orange family. And those are really great. So I usually have those after my workout, before I have my big meal, about an hour before while the food's cooking. then I'll have those, and that's a great way for me to get some vitamin C. Vitamin A is another good one as well. I think one thing I've noticed is an improvement in the kind of general appearance of my skin, or just general skin health. Now, this could just be coincidence, but I did notice when I started having more vitamin A that my skin almost got a little bit less pale, as I feel like my skin was a little bit too pale before, but I feel like now it's got a little bit of a kind of subtle color to it, which is quite nice. And I think that's probably due to the amount of sweet potato and beta carotene which I was having. There's kind of two ways of having vitamin A. You can have it from meat sources, which is almost like taking a vitamin A supplement. It's just like the vitamin A itself. Or you can get it from vegetables. And when you get it from vegetables, you're actually getting it as beta carotene. Now, beta carotene is pretty cool because it can be stored by the body and then turned into vitamin A whenever it needs it. So it's a lot more kind of efficient, right? So beta carotene is a great one there. So having your sweet potato and your carrots, usually as a general principle, most of these vegetables with a kind of orange glow to it tend to have beta carotene in it. But I believe cauliflower is also a source of beta carotene as well. So there's some great sources there. And again, I'm kind of giving cauliflower some more light here because I found it's been a pretty amazing food to add into my diet recently. But yeah, anyway, I'm kind of rambling on about, this kind of topic because I'm quite passionate about it as someone who used to have some really terrible digestive symptoms. Like I used to be in agonizing pain quite regularly, unfortunately, when I was not eating as well. And so I had to learn a lot about how to bring these healthy foods into my life, and I've reaped a lot of benefits from it. So in a way, I'm kind of really grateful for the kind of digestive upset which I've had in my kind of late teenage years, because it really helped me learn, or motivate me to learn more about eating well. And as a result, it's probably partly to thank for how much progress I've made in like my kind of general entrepreneurship journey, and also in my kind of progress with martial arts and things like that as well. So I'd highly recommend looking in more into different foods you can have, but hopefully this will give you a good general blueprint that you can follow to start integrating healthy foods into your life. So just as a little recap here again, first point here is to make sure you're starting with lower fiber healthy foods first if you're not really used to having a lot of fiber. And second principle is when you're adding in a new food, you can do the same thing, just kind of progressing in the new food slowly. And that's a great way to build up the gut microbiome, so you can actually break down the fiber and eat the food comfortably. So that way you get digestive comfort plus all the nutrients, and that kind of puts you into a nice baseline level of ease, making it much easier for you to sustain health and happiness, which is what this channel is all about. And also another thing about flavor is over time, your taste buds will adapt and start to enjoy these healthy foods more. Or at least that's something that I noticed personally when I started eating healthy. And this change can happen quite quickly. So please don't worry about it taking absolutely forever. But in the meantime, just making sure to have some of the healthier foods which are tasty already. So maybe ones you already enjoy, or you can have fruit and things like that. They can be quite nice. And that could be a good way to start creating a positive feedback loop towards some of these more healthier foods. And then also look forward to all of the amazing health benefits you're going to get and general improvement to your quality of life. So yeah, that's just going to go ahead and wrap up today's video. And also, if you did enjoy it, then please feel free to share it with anyone who you think will enjoy it. This channel is purely just for, trying to help people out. So it's not really any financial incentive for this for me. I'm just sharing things which have really helped me with my health. So if you could share it, you'd be doing me a massive service, because this is kind of like my side project to hopefully try help people improve their health and happiness. So I'm just doing my best here, and hopefully these videos are helpful to you guys. And if you do want to look for another video to watch, then I just released one on sleep the other day, which hopefully you'll find interesting if you're someone who maybe struggles to get to sleep, or if you're just wanting to look to improve your general sleep quality. But apart from that, guys, I hope you all have a lovely rest of your day or night, and I'll catch you later. Take care.